Hey guys, tonight we are going to travel back to a time long before cities, before fire, before even the first recognizable human, to a world that belonged to our deepest, most distant ancestors. We're going to find the moments, the sparks of genius and desperation that set our family on the path to becoming us. Imagine we are standing on the Earth as it was 25 million years ago. The continents are not quite in their final positions, and the climate is intensely warm and humid. Before you lies a vast, unbroken forest that stretches from Africa all the way into Europe. A single, sprawling green canopy that rules the world. But in that endless sea of trees, one family of creatures is quietly developing extraordinary new abilities. They are the great apes, and among them is your great-great-grandfather, 1,000,000 times removed. Over millions of years, his descendants will learn to hunt, to harness power, and to love. They will compete with giant beasts, conquer the planet, and become masters of every climate. They will become us. So where did this incredible story begin? Who was the very first of us to take that decisive step? And what is that unique quality that truly makes us human? Thanks to the latest scientific discoveries, tonight we will venture into the depths of time together to find the answers. Frankly, if you were dropped here without a time machine, the biggest predator you'd have to worry about probably wouldn't be a tiger, but a 10-foot-tall ape called Gigantopithecus. So, maybe stay close. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. That small click sends a big signal to the algorithm. That long-form, serious educational content still matters. And to me, it's an incredibly meaningful show of support. Thank you so much for helping keep this channel going strong. It always fascinates me to see where you're all tuning in from. Let me know in the comments where you are in the world and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your story begins here, not on the sweeping savannas of Africa, but in a place you might not expect. The humid tropical coast of modern-day Spain, 13 million years ago. The air is thick with moisture, and the trees around you are heavy with ripe fruit. This is the age of the planet of the apes, a time when dozens of ape species ruled the canopy, from Europe to China. Living here is a creature with truly exceptional abilities, a master acrobat named Pierolapithecus. And this particular ape, your distant grandfather, is about to stumble upon a revolutionary idea. You watch him move. He's heavy, too heavy to scurry along the tops of branches like a monkey. Instead, he hangs below them, swinging with a grace that the animal kingdom has never seen before. But look closer. As he navigates a thicket of branches, he does something strange. He ends up on 2 feet, walking upright along a sturdy bough. This is a revelation that shatters one of the most iconic images in science. You've seen the March of Progress illustration, with the stooped ape gradually standing taller until he becomes a modern human. Historians and paleoanthropologists still argue about the precise path of our evolution, but one thing is becoming clear. That picture is wrong. The ability to walk upright wasn't invented by humans on the ground. It was an accidental discovery made by apes up in the trees. Freeing the hands for balance, for carrying food, for gesturing. It all started here as a clever way to get from one fig tree to the next. Our specific Pierolapithecus is a young male, and he's in trouble. Just a few days ago, he left his family group, forced out by instinct as he reached adolescence. Now he faces a life-or-death challenge, He must convince a new group to adopt him. For a lone male, the forest is a death sentence. He's just found a new troop, but the welcome is anything but warm. Every group has its own territory, and intruders are seen as a threat. You can feel the tension as he cautiously approaches. His very survival will be decided in the next few hours. The scientific evidence for this remarkable creature comes from a partial skeleton, including parts of a rib cage, spine, and hands, unearthed in Catalonia, Spain. The structure of his torso is a key clue. Unlike monkeys, whose bodies are built for walking on all fours on top of branches, Pierolapithecus had a wider, flatter rib cage and a more rigid lower back, much more like yours. This anatomy is perfect for an animal that hangs and climbs, a body plan that pre-adapted our lineage for the upright posture that would one day let us stride across the entire planet. Your grandfather is about to put that adaptable body to the test, not just physically, but socially. You watch from the dense foliage as the young male sizes up his potential new family. His senses are on high alert. He can smell them, a musky, familiar scent of ape, but with a unique note he doesn't recognize, the specific odor of this clan. You see what he sees. A large male sits calmly, a picture of dominant power. That's the alpha. Getting too close to him would be a fatal mistake. Nearby, a young female nurses her infant, her eyes wary and constantly scanning. Mothers are the most cautious. They have the most to lose. But then he spots her. An older female, her fur slightly grayed, her movements slower, more deliberate. She seems easier to approach, less on edge than the others. His fate, you realize, will likely be decided by her. He makes his move, a subtle shift in the branches to make himself noticed without being overtly threatening. He tries to send a signal of peace, but it's a tense moment. Has the young, beautiful female he spotted earlier picked up his scent? It seems so. She glances his way, a flicker of curiosity in her eyes. But before any connection can be made, the alpha male stirs. It's another story with him. He doesn't need to attack to show his power. He simply rises, making himself look larger, his muscles tensing. It's pure physical intimidation, a clear message. This is my territory. These are my females. The young male's first attempt ends in a swift and humiliating failure. He retreats, his shoulders slumped, his mood a visible cloud of dejection. But his display of misery provokes something entirely unexpected. It's here you witness the birth of a quality that will one day define our humanity. The older female watches him, and you can see a change in her expression. She isn't seeing a threat anymore. She's seeing his distress. This is the dawn of a new power in the animal kingdom, something shared by very few species. Empathy. It's the ability to understand what another is feeling, but it goes even deeper. As she watches the young male's sadness, her own posture changes. She becomes anxious, agitated. This is sympathy. She is not just understanding his emotion, she is affected by it. Anthropologists argue whether true empathy is uniquely human or has deeper roots in our primate ancestry. Some point to our close cousins, the bonobos, who exhibit similar pro-social behaviors and often live in female-centric societies. The actions of this ancient ape, your distant grandmother, suggest the foundation was laid long before our brains grew large and our tongues learned to speak. She feels the young male's pain, and it compels her to act. She needs to know more about this stranger. Empathy, you see, is a powerful social glue, the very thing that allows us to live in cities of millions today, to care about strangers. and to build societies based on more than just dominance and fear. You now understand the social dynamics at play. Unlike many primate groups where males form the stable core, among Pierolapithecus, the females never leave the group they are born into. They are the matriarchs, the keepers of territory and tradition. It's the males who are forced to leave at adolescence, becoming lonely wanderers. This social structure gives the females immense power. The older female makes a series of gestures, a soft grunt, a slight turn of her head. It's a subtle invitation. Will he be able to stay? Not yet. The alpha is still watching, but a connection has been made. The young male, understanding the complex politics, keeps his distance for now. He has found an ally. Her compassion is his only way in, a crack of light in the closed door of the clan. As dusk settles over the Spanish forest, a deep quiet falls, punctuated by the chirps of insects. The young male, your ancient grandfather, finds a high branch to wait out the night. He is exhausted, but a profound problem remains. Most mammals on the forest floor sleep for only a few minutes at a time, their senses always on a hair trigger for predators. But not Pierolapithecus. In terms of sleep, they are revolutionaries. You watch as the group begins to construct their nightly refuge, bending and weaving branches into soft, secure platforms high in the treetops. They have come up with an extraordinary invention. The nest. It protects them from predators and stops them from falling, allowing them to sleep soundly through the entire night. This simple bed of leaves is more important than it looks. It is the key to a bigger brain. That long restorative sleep isn't just for resting the body. It's for building the mind. As you sleep tonight, your brain will perform a miracle. It will sift through the mountain of information you received today, discarding the useless noise, like the color of a car that drove by, and carefully storing the essential parts in your long-term memory. All that while you sleep, a remarkable process of learning and consolidation that your Pierolapithecus ancestors passed down to you. Without the safety of the nest, without the gift of a full night's sleep, our minds could never have grown to dream, to invent, and to wonder about the stars. But there's a catch. Nest building is a complex skill, learned from one's mother over many years. The young male, having left his home, always slept in his mother's nest. He still doesn't know how to make his own. He is an orphan of the night, forced to sleep fitfully on an open branch while the family slumbers safely above. The next morning, the group descends to the forest floor, and the young male follows, determined to prove his worth. He watches as an infant, through greed or ignorance, eats a poisonous plant and falls gravely ill. The mother is distraught, but this is the young male's chance. In his home group, he learned something this clan doesn't know. He recognizes the poison and knows the antidote. He finds a specific type of leafy plant, one covered in tiny spines that can trap parasitic worms, a piece of ancient herbalist knowledge. He brings it to the mother, a gift of medicine. The infant is saved. This is more than just a single act of kindness. It's a demonstration of a vital evolutionary mechanism. This is the beginning of a culture. You see, knowledge among these apes is not uniform. Mothers teach their young how to choose and pick food, passing down wisdom from generation to generation. But different groups develop different areas of expertise. His knowledge of this particular cure is unique to his birth clan. Now he has another trick to show them. He finds a stick, modifies it slightly, and plunges it into a termite mound. The golden-eyed female he admires watches, fascinated by a technique she has never seen before. He pulls out the stick, covered in delicious, protein-rich termites. This simple stick is a profound leap forward. It is the first tool, an extension of the hand that allows our ancestors to perform entirely new tasks. The social structure that forces young males to leave their families, which seemed so cruel, is now revealed to be a stroke of genius. The young depart with the knowledge of their group and transmit it to other groups they join. This cross-pollination of ideas, of new tools, new foods, and new medicines, is what allows the entire species to adapt and thrive. The young male has proven his value not with strength, but with knowledge. The females see this. Their numbers make them stronger than the alpha, and they make their will known. The alpha must finally back down. Your grandfather has been accepted. He has successfully transferred not only his genes into a new population, but his culture too. The earthly paradise of your ancestors, with its abundant fruit and stable society, could not last. A power far greater than any alpha male was stirring. Deep beneath the Earth's surface, the tectonic plates were on the move. You must imagine a force of unimaginable scale, a slow-motion collision happening over millions of years. The African continent, your ancestral homeland, was grinding inexorably north, on a collision course with Europe. The world was about to be broken and remade. The first casualty of this geological war was the climate. As Africa pushed upwards, it began to squeeze shut the vast Tethys Ocean, the ancient sea that separated the continents. The planet's weather patterns were thrown into chaos. The humid winds that had nourished the great forests of Europe for eons were cut off. A great and terrible drying began. The world of your Pierolapithecus grandfather started to die. The leaves withered on the trees, the fruit vanished, and the lush canopy fragmented into isolated pockets of green. His descendants faced a stark choice: adapt, move, or perish. And so, the great exodus began. The apes followed the retreating forests, a desperate migration that led them south. They arrived at the edge of the Mediterranean, but it was not the sea you know today. A fascinating and bizarre chapter in Earth's history, known as the Messinian Salinity Crisis, was underway. With the Strait of Gibraltar closing like a stone door, the Mediterranean was cut off from the Atlantic and began to evaporate under the hot sun. It became a vast, dead basin, a shimmering desert of salt, thousands of feet below sea level. Your ancestors, these pioneering apes, walked across this alien landscape, a place no human has ever seen, crossing from a dying Europe into a changing Africa. They were searching for the forests they had lost, and in Africa, they found them. But this was a new world. Here, the forest was spreading across the vast green plains of what is now the Sahara. This pressure cooker of climate change and migration forged a new species from the Pierolapithecus line, a creature with astonishing new abilities, honed by the challenges of this new land. His name is Sahelanthropus, but you know him by his nickname, Toumaï. You are now standing on the shores of a prehistoric megalake, 7 million years in the past, in the heart of the modern-day nation of Chad. The air is warm, and the landscape is a mosaic of forest and savanna. Here lives Toumaï. The descendant of the golden-eyed female from our first story is now a Toumaï. Her appearance changed, but her lineage carried forward in her DNA. This new ancestor still sleeps in the trees, but he spends much more of his time on the ground, where a more varied and challenging food supply awaits. Toumaï is a crucial link in our family chain. Paleoanthropologists still debate his exact place on our family tree. Is he your direct ancestor, or a very close cousin on a side branch that eventually died out? Either way, he is almost certainly what the common ancestor between you and a modern chimpanzee looked like. The scientific proof for his significance is literally written in his bones. The most famous Toumaï fossil is a single, remarkably complete skull, and on its base is the clue that changes everything: the foramen magnum, the hole where the spinal cord connects to the brain. In quadrupedal apes, this hole is at the back of the skull. In Toumaï, it's positioned directly underneath. This is the anatomical smoking gun. It is undeniable evidence that 7 million years ago, Toumaï was holding his head upright and walking on 2 feet. The journey on the ground had begun in earnest. Life on the ground has changed everything. The stable, female-led society of your Pierolapithecus ancestors is a distant memory, a forgotten world. Down here in the open, the rules are different. The world is more dangerous, resources are more concentrated, and the social order has been completely rewritten. You are now in a society dominated by males, organized into a strict and unforgiving hierarchy. Power is the new currency, and it is a currency paid for in constant vigilance and simmering tension. At the top of this volatile pyramid sits the Alpha, the descendant of the Alpha from millions of years before, but he is a completely different kind of leader. He is not just the strongest, he is a politician. You watch him hold court, and you realize you are witnessing the birth of politics. He patrols the group, a coiled spring of energy, constantly reinforcing his position. He sees a weaker member of the group and shoves him aside for no reason other than to remind everyone of the pecking order. It's a casual, brutal display. But then, just moments later, you see him approach another strong male, a potential rival. He doesn't fight him. Instead, he begins to groom him, a gesture of friendship and appeasement, a calculated move to keep a threat on his side. He is building alliances. He then saunters over to the elder female, the matriarch, and offers a soft grunt of respect, sweet-talking her, because he knows her goodwill is a valuable asset in the clan. This is a new and exhausting game, a never-ending series of rivalries, strategies, betrayals, and conquests of power. The males now spend most of their day plotting, scheming, and managing their social stock price. It's a full-time job. Primatologists still debate the exact reasons for this power shift from the more egalitarian ape societies to these fiercely hierarchical ones. Perhaps the constant threat of predators on the ground favored the larger, more aggressive males for defense. Or perhaps the competition for scarce, high-value resources created a winner-take-all environment. Whatever the cause, the result is clear. A society has emerged that is eerily familiar, one that has laid the groundwork for the power dynamics that would shape human kingdoms and corporations millions of years later. This intense focus on politics by the males creates a vacuum, and it is left to the females to find ways to actually live. They are the ones who must feed and educate the young. And so they become the true innovators. They are the ones who experiment with new tools for cracking nuts or digging for tubers. They are the ones with the greater practical instinct, the ones imagining new techniques while the males are busy imagining new insults. It's no wonder, the documentary dryly notes, that the females have become more resourceful than the males. This creates a fundamental gendered divide in labor and expert that will echo through human history. Even the act of procreation has become more political, thanks to your ancestors' upright posture. You see the alpha approach a female, but he faces a new and awkward problem. In most other primates, A female's readiness to mate is advertised by obvious physical signals, like the bright pink genital swellings you see in baboons. But with bipedalism, those signals are now hidden. How is he supposed to know if she's interested? He can't just rely on biology anymore. He has to check for her willingness, to read her social cues, to engage in a moment of negotiation. She turns away from him, a clear sign of disinterest. He is rejected. The simple act of walking on two legs has accidentally invented a new layer of courtship, one that requires consent and social intelligence. A subtle dance that complicates the alpha's simple rule of might makes right. Amidst the constant political maneuvering of the males, a quieter, more profound revolution is taking place. You witness it as two juveniles, a young male and female, slip away from the group. They are not fighting, nor are they competing for food. They are simply seeking each other's company. This is the Toumaï's greatest invention: preference. Before, there was only the brief biological act of mating. It was functional and fleeting, lasting only a minute. Now, something new is happening. They can spend time together, exchanging gestures of affection. You watch as the great game of seduction unfolds for the first time. She seeks his gaze, and he is transfixed. He smells her. She touches his arm, and they both feel a stirring of desire. They give kisses, another new invention, and when they finally mate, they do so in a way no ape has before, face to face. In this intimate gaze, the great apes begin to feel their hearts beating, their hair standing on end. It's a huge step in the relationship between males and females, the beginning of a bond that goes beyond instinct. For a moment, you see the dawn of what we might one day call love. But life on the ground is unforgiving. As the two young lovers are lost in their own world, and the rest of the group is distracted by their daily dramas, no one notices an infant has strayed too close to the water's edge. A predator strikes. It's over in an instant. The little one's frail body is left limp and lifeless on the bank. The loss is heartbreaking, a stark reminder that while the ground offers new opportunities, it holds far more dangers than the canopy ever did. Now something strange happens in the minds of your ancestors. By all logic, the young mother should leave the lifeless body and move on. The group must keep foraging to survive. But she refuses. She clings to the body, confused and grieving. Why? What is she feeling? The group gathers around her, a silent circle of shared sorrow. They are starting to understand the concept of death. They are grappling with the profound mystery of what lives inside us and what vanishes so suddenly. In this moment, they know that their own lives will also one day end. Faced with this unbearable suffering and confusion, they huddle together. It is the beginning of a ritual, a first funeral ceremony. For years, we believed that this awareness of our own mortality was the quality that made us uniquely human. We now know we share this somber knowledge with many other species, including our chimpanzee cousins who have been observed mourning their dead. This new awareness, however, does not make them peaceful. One morning, the alpha male spots another group of Toumaï under a large fig tree. They are strangers, and they are feasting on overripe, fermented fruits that have fallen to the ground. They are drunk, and among them are two enticing females. The alpha wants what he sees, but they belong to another male, a giant. A cunning, previously unimagined idea begins to formulate inside the alpha's head. It is an idea that will make our lineage the most dangerous predator on the planet. The idea is to kill, not just to lash out in anger, but to kill one's own species with premeditation and in an organized way. To kill, to take the goods of others. He rallies his allies, and they launch a coordinated, brutal attack. It is a slaughter. The Toumaï have just invented war. They have conquered a new territory, a tree full of fruit, and a few females. This violent act has its advantages, and it sets a dark precedent for the future. The human shadow, with its capacity for both love and organized violence, has been cast. The world changes again. Your Toumaï ancestors, with their budding politics and dawning self-awareness, are survivors of one climate crisis, but another is already on the horizon. Starting around 5 million years ago, the planet's thermostat begins to drop. The great forests of Africa, which had spread across the Sahara, begin to recede under a relentless, continent-spanning drought. The land cracks open, the rivers shrink, and the very air tastes of dust. The descendants of Toumaï are pushed into a crucible, a period of immense environmental stress that will force a fundamental choice, splitting your family line in two forever. One branch of the family decides this whole walking on the ground experiment was a terrible idea. They see the future in the past, in the safety of the shrinking forests. They retreat back into the trees, abandoning full-time bipedalism for a more efficient way of getting around on 4 limbs known as knuckle walking. This was not a step backward, but a successful adaptation to a world where the trees were the safest, most reliable source of food. You know their descendants well. They are the chimpanzees and gorillas of today, your closest living relatives, the children of the branch that chose to stay home. But the other branch of the family, your branch, makes a different, far riskier choice. They turn their backs on the trees and commit fully to the open ground, to the vast, dangerous, and unforgiving savanna. This decision gives rise to a great and diverse new family of hominins, the Australopithecus. For the next few million years, they spread throughout Africa in a great diaspora, evolving into a multitude of species. Afarensis, Africanus, Anamensis, each a unique experiment in this new way of life. You are now in the south of the African continent, 2 million years ago, and the drought is at its peak. Here, a new character has appeared in our story, a creature who will radically alter our history. We call him Australopithecus sediba. Is Sediba a direct ancestor on our line, or a very close cousin on a side branch that eventually died out? The debate still rages among scientists, but either way, his story shows us the extreme pressures your family was forced to endure. Sediba's world is a brutal one. The few scraggly trees that remain offer the only protection from the man-eating beasts that roam the land. Saber-toothed cats, giant hyenas, so they never stray too far. But the trees offer no food. The dry season is at its absolute peak, and there isn't a single piece of fruit to be found. The only food is underground, tough, fibrous roots and bulbs that are difficult to find, and even harder to dig out of the baked earth. You watch them spend hours upon hours just chewing this tough, gritty, low-calorie food, their powerful jaw muscles working constantly. The sheer effort of eating is exhausting, and it provides barely enough energy to survive. Their social life has become desperate, a harem system where females trade their autonomy for the protection of the strongest males. This extreme scarcity of food is driving the entire species to the brink of extinction. If they do not find an alternative, a radical new solution, they will all die. Your lineage is one bad season away from ending before it has truly begun. Inside the fragile social structure of the Sediba, a new, harsh arrangement has taken hold. The females now live in a harem, clustered around the strongest males who offer protection from the ever-present predators in exchange for their loyalty and mating rights. For the less powerful, like an old female who can no longer chew the tough roots, life is a slow fade towards death. Her only hope is a young, subordinate male who, in a quiet act of empathy, chews her food for her to keep her alive. But this small kindness is a drop of water in a vast desert. The species is on the edge of a cliff. It is in this moment of utter desperation that two of them, the young male and one of the alpha's own females, make a decision that is both reckless and revolutionary. She wants to take the risk, and he is ready to join her. Against the wishes of the alpha, against every instinct screaming at them to stay close to the safety of the trees, they will attempt the impossible. You watch them step out from the sparse woodland, their small, upright figures silhouetted against the vast, terrifying emptiness of the savannah. Neither of them has ever been this far from home. The desire to eat, the biological imperative to find something, anything, better than the gritty roots they've been choking down, outweighs the certain dangers that lurk in the tall grass. The brave ones who took this reckless decision could not have possibly known the profound effect it would have on the history of your species. And then they find it. A fresh carcass, left behind by a lion. It is an abundance of meat, more than they have ever seen in one place. Their first instinct is not just for the muscle, but for something far more precious. They tear at the parts that contain fat, the tastiest and most energy-rich pieces. In the natural world of your ancestors, fat is incredibly rare, a biological treasure chest packed with energy, crucial for absorbing what few proteins they can find. They instinctively seek out the best parts, the marrow locked inside the bones, the nutrient-dense entrails, the brain, the tongue, and the eyes. This deep, primal craving for fatty foods is a ghost that still lives in you today, the echo of a time when finding a morsel of fat could mean the difference between life and death. This single meal is the spark that ignites a revolution in your lineage. Paleoanthropologists call it the expensive tissue hypothesis, and it works like this. Your body has an energy budget, and two of its most expensive organs are your gut and your brain. For millions of years, your ancestors, subsisting on tough, low-quality plants, had to maintain a huge, energy-guzzling digestive system just to extract a few calories. But meat and fat are incredibly easy to digest. They are calorie bombs. This new diet meant the gut could shrink, consuming far less of the body's energy budget. That freed-up energy didn't just vanish. It was redirected to the other expensive organ. For the first time, your family line could afford a bigger brain. Less energy consumed by the stomach meant more energy for the brain. Thanks to that simple metabolic trade-off, your ancestors' mental capacity would begin to improve, and their bodies, freed from the burden of a massive gut, would become taller and slimmer. The two explorers returned to the clan, their arms laden with this wonderful new food. It is a triumph, a solution for the future of the entire species. But the alpha male is not ready to digest this humiliation. This female is part of his harem. She has betrayed him by acting on her own and succeeding so spectacularly. His power rests on being the sole protector and provider. In front of everyone, he punishes her, humiliates her, and isolates her from the others. A brutal reassertion of his authority. But it's too late. A new dynamic has been unleashed. A new generation is coming whose ingenuity is proving to be a more decisive advantage than brute physical force. The seed of a new kind of human has been planted, watered by fat and courage. The taste of meat has changed your ancestors' world, but the humiliation of the alpha male has cast a long shadow over the group. A new kind of food has brought a new kind of tension. And there is a profound practical problem. The savannah is a dangerous restaurant. Every meal is eaten out in the open, on territory that belongs to the great predators. When a lion leaves a kill, it's only a matter of time before it returns, or before hyenas and vultures arrive to claim their share. The meat was a miracle, but it was a fleeting one, consumed in a frantic rush of adrenaline and fear. It is the young male, the innovator, whose mind is already working on the next step. His body is weak, but his brain, fueled by this new, energy-rich diet, is firing in a way no brain has before. He is not just thinking about this meal, but the meal after, and the one after that. What if they didn't have to eat in the shadow of death? What if they could cut the carcass into smaller, manageable pieces and carry them back to the relative safety of the trees? It's a simple idea, but it requires a technology that does not yet exist. Their hands are good for grasping, but not for tearing through thick hide. Their teeth are not the shearing blades of a carnivore. They need something more. You watch him as he contemplates a rock. He already knows how to use a heavy stone to smash open a bone and get to the delicious marrow inside. But this is a different problem that requires a different solution. He needs not a hammer, but a knife. He picks up a smooth, rounded cobblestone in one hand and another, harder rock in the other. He strikes them together. A small flake chips off. He tries again. A sharp crack echoes in the dry air, and a large, flat shard with an edge as sharp as a razor falls to the ground. This is the moment. This wasn't an accident. It was an act of pure imagination and engineering. He had a problem in his mind. He conceived of a tool to solve it, and he manufactured it from the raw materials of his world. This is the birth of the stone tool industry, a revolution that will last for more than 2 million years and lay the foundation for all human technology to come. Archaeologists call this first toolkit the Older One tradition, after the gorge where so many of these simple choppers and flakes were first found. Now he has the technology, but he needs a team. He has to convince the others to follow him on an even more dangerous venture than before. He cannot use force. The alpha is still stronger. So he must use a new kind of power, the power of persuasion. His language is still rudimentary, a collection of gestures, calls, and perhaps a few simple words. But he uses it to lay out his vision, to evoke images of abandoned feasts, of carrying food home to a safe place where the whole clan can eat in peace. He is not just giving an order. He is selling a dream of a better future, a future with full bellies and less fear. And the others, especially the weaker ones who always get the last scraps, are listening. He captures their attention. He wins them over with his words. The alpha understands that his dominance is under threat. His entire worldview is based on caution, on the brute physical reality of his strength, and on the safety of the trees. The young male's idea is a direct challenge to all of it. He sees only the risk, the unknown danger of the open plains, and his answer is no. And so, the group comes to a fork in the road, a great schism that will decide the fate of your entire race. Some follow the alpha. The strong never want to give up their privileges, and they retreat to the perceived safety of the trees, back to a life of chewing tough roots. They will evolve for a time, into a successful side branch of our family known as Paranthropus, or almost humans. For decades, we thought the most famous Australopithecus, Lucy, was the grandmother of all humanity. We were probably wrong. The latest analysis of her lineage suggests she was, in fact, one of these almost humans. Her descendants were a successful and long-lasting group, but they were not our direct ancestors. They were our cousins, who ultimately gambled on the wrong future and died out 1,000,000 years later. But the others, the ones who leave, are different. In fact, it is the weaker ones who make the right choice. They have less to lose and more to gain. They are the ones guided by their imagination, by the dream of another, better world over the horizon. Even the old female, her energy nearly spent, is galvanized by hope. They risk everything to follow this young dreamer into the unknown. If some of them hadn't had this astonishing courage, you wouldn't be here today. Your ancestors, the small band of courageous scavengers, have freed themselves from the life of the trees. They march into an unknown world, a vast continent inhabited by terrifying carnivores, all for the dream of a full belly. But as they venture forth, the very planet beneath their feet is undergoing another colossal transformation. You must now fast forward your time machine, past the era of Sediba, to a point 5 million years ago. Far to the west, the two American continents, which had been separate land masses, are slowly colliding, pushing up the land bridge of Panama. This single geological event will change the world and set the stage for the next great chapter in your story. This collision reroutes the ocean currents of the entire planet. A powerful new current is born, the Gulf Stream. It carries warm water from the Gulf of Mexico up towards the Arctic, where it releases its heat into the atmosphere and plunges into the deep, cold ocean. This massive heat pump in the Atlantic has a paradoxical effect. It delivers more moisture to the north, which falls as snow, feeding the growth of massive glaciers. The polar ice cap forms, the Earth cools, and your planet enters the Ice Age. In Africa, the consequences are dramatic. The green, lush plains of the Sahara, where Toumaï once lived, dry out completely, becoming the vast desert you know today. This forces a mass exodus. 2 million years ago, vast populations of herbivores, ancient elephants, antelopes, and horses leave Africa in search of new pastures in Asia and Europe. And right behind them, a new kind of human follows. Meet Homo erectus, the standing man. He is the next character in your story, an unparalleled explorer and the first of your ancestors to leave the African motherland and begin the conquest of the entire globe. You see him now, a man of the plains, and his anatomy is that of a chimpian. He is born to run. His body is strikingly modern. Long, powerful legs propel a tall, vertical body, perfectly balanced by his arms. But his true advantage is a piece of biological engineering that makes him the greatest endurance athlete the world has ever seen. His body is covered not in thick fur, but in short hairs, and his skin is studded with millions of sweat glands. As he runs, his body perspires, and the evaporating sweat creates an extraordinary cooling system, allowing him to shed heat far more efficiently than any fur-covered animal. Even more remarkably, his brain has its own dedicated radiator. A complex network of blood vessels purifies the blood and regulates the temperature of his most vital organ, preventing it from overheating during long exertions. This combination of features gives him more stamina than any other living creature. He may be slower than a gazelle in a short sprint, but he can run and run and run for hours on end under the hot sun. This unique adaptation allowed Homo erectus to invent a revolutionary new hunting technique that scientists call persistence hunting. Imagine the scene. A small band of erectus hunters singles out a large antelope. They don't try to ambush it. They simply begin to jog after it, relentlessly. The antelope easily sprints away, but the hunters just keep coming, following its tracks at a steady, patient pace. For hours, this continues. The antelope sprints, rests, and sprints again, its fur-covered body overheating with each burst of speed. But the hunters, their naked, sweating skin keeping them cool, never stop. Eventually, the prey is exhausted. It collapses from heat stroke, unable to run another step. The hunters, barely breaking a sweat, walk up and claim their prize. It's a testament to how a seemingly simple adaptation, the ability to sweat effectively, could turn a small, scrappy hominin into one of the most formidable hunters on the plains. This is the new power that will fuel their journey out of Africa and across the world. Armed with this incredible stamina and a simple yet effective stone toolkit, Homo erectus is no longer content to live on the scraps left by others. You are witnessing a fundamental shift in the balance of power on planet Earth. Your ancestors are transforming from opportunistic scavengers into organized big-game hunters. They are no longer just competing with vultures and hyenas for the leftovers. Thanks to their weapons and their collective organization, they are now competing directly with the top predators, the lions and the saber-toothed cats. This is an audacious move up the food chain, a promotion that will have profound consequences for their society. Hunting massive, dangerous animals is a team sport. It requires more than just the strength of a single individual. It demands strategy, communication, anticipation, and a deep understanding of animal behavior. As a result, the very nature of leadership begins to change. The old rule of the strongest, the Toumaï alpha male who dominated through sheer physical intimidation, is now being replaced by the leadership of the cleverest. Paleoanthropologists see this social shift reflected in their skeletons. The physical differences in size between males and females have started to reduce, suggesting that brute force is becoming less of a deciding factor in social status. In this new world, the person who leads the hunt is not necessarily the biggest, but the one with the best plan. And in the group you are observing, that person is a woman. Her ability to anticipate the movement of the herds, her intelligence in setting the trap, and her political skill in keeping the hunters working together have made her their chief. Her authority is not a birthright, nor is it based on fear. It is earned, a testament to her skill. This is a revolutionary concept, a hint that the rigid social structures of the past are becoming more fluid, more adaptable, and more meritocratic. Their new life as hunters forces them to become nomads, following the great herds across the continent. But they are not just wandering aimlessly. You watch as they transform their environment, creating a home in the wilderness. They find a good site, perhaps on a high bluff with a clear view of the surrounding plains, and they begin to build their first shelters. These are not just places to sleep. They are base camps, semi-permanent headquarters that serve as the anchor for their nomadic lives. They build simple structures, perhaps enclosed by fences of sharpened sticks, creating a protected space for the young and the elderly, a place to store food and to return to after a long hunt. Inside this protected bubble, their society becomes infinitely more complex. With a stable home base, not everyone has to be involved in every task. Social functions begin to appear, roles often assigned according to individual skills. You can see it in the life of the camp. One man sits for hours, his focus absolute, chipping away at a piece of flint. He is the master tool maker, his hands capable of creating hand axes of incredible symmetry and sharpness. Over by the fire, a few women work on a fresh kill. They are the butchers, their knowledge of anatomy precise as they cut the meat, separate the organs, and prepare the hide. Others are tanning those hides, or gathering wood, or tending to the children. For the first time in your family's history, the concept of specialized work is born. But with work comes all the pressures and conflicts that are still part of your life today. It's clear that some do more than others. Resentment can simmer. The most important moment of the day is when the hunt is brought back and the food is shared out. The female chief oversees the distribution with a careful eye. She must maintain justice. The hunters who took the greatest risks get the best cuts. She gives a little extra to someone whose support she may need in a future dispute. She is constantly establishing the hierarchy and nurturing her alliances. Her social life requires a delicate and constant application of political skill. She is not just a hunter. She is the manager of a small, complex, and sometimes fractious corporation, held together by her wisdom and the promise of a shared meal. Your ancestors have built a complex society, but they are still at the mercy of a world filled with unexplained phenomena. One of the greatest of these mysteries is about to reveal itself, and it is a terrifying one. It comes in the dry season, a savage beast that appears on the horizon, roaring as it consumes the world, taking lives and leaving only blackness in its wake. You watch as a wall of flame sweeps across the plains. The Homo erectus clan is utterly defeated by it. They are not masters of this force. They are its victims. They save whatever they can carry and flee for their lives as the fire destroys their camp, their world, and their sense of security. Hours later, the fire has passed, leaving behind a smoldering, silent landscape. The herds have deserted the area, and the clan is left with nothing but the smoke stinging their eyes. But then, a new sensation cuts through the despair. A powerful, unfamiliar odor wafts through the air. It's not the smell of burning grass or charred wood. It's a rich, mouth-watering scent that makes their stomachs ache with hunger. Following the aroma, they find its source, an animal trapped and killed in the fire. Its flesh is still good, and hesitantly, one of them reaches out and tastes it. The discovery is immediate and profound. It is delicious. This is perhaps how your ancestors, through a terrifying accident of nature, discovered the remarkable property of fire, to cook food. This single, accidental meal will change the human body and mind more than any invention that has come before it. As they soon notice, the cooked meat is not only tastier, it is incredibly easy to chew and digest. Those awful fibrous roots they used to spend hours grinding between their teeth. When cooked, they become soft, sweet, and require 16 times less energy to digest. Anthropologists still debate whether Homo erectus could consistently create fire from scratch, or if they were merely fire farmers, skillfully capturing and preserving natural fires for months or even years. But however they managed it, the impact was the same. It was an external stomach, doing much of the hard work of digestion before the food even passed their lips. This created a massive new energy surplus in their diet, and that energy had to go somewhere. It allowed for the final, crucial trade-off in human evolution. With less need for powerful chewing, our jaw muscles began to shrink, allowing our skulls to become rounder and more balanced. Our guts, no longer needing to be a huge fermentation tank for tough plants, could become smaller and more efficient. And all of that saved energy was redirected to one place: the brain. Your brain, even at rest, consumes about 20% of your body's total energy, a ridiculously expensive organ. Cooking was the subsidy that made that amazing brain affordable. It became a high-powered machine, capable of more complex associations, more constructed thoughts, and even entirely new emotions. It is likely that your aesthetic sense, the ability to be affected by the beauty of the world, the shape of a stone, the colors of a sunset, developed at this time, a wonderful side effect of a well-fed brain. They are all dreaming about that delicious food now, but they lack the key ingredient. They cannot create the beast. They can only wait for it to appear. But then, one day, they see it in the distance. Another group of humans. And they have the beast with them. It is not a monster to them. It is small, controlled, and contained in a circle of stones. They have captured it. The chief knows her clan must possess this technology. They could fight for it. A risky gamble against a group that wields such a powerful weapon. But she has a different, more sophisticated idea. Her clan are masters of a certain kind of stone working. The other clan is more skilled in preparing hides and, crucially, controlling fire. So instead of conflict, she proposes an exchange. This is a watershed moment, one of the first instances of trade. Through the objects they exchange, the techniques and knowledge that go with them travel between the clans. A new era for humanity has begun. The exchange of knowledge, an ancient internet of skills that will allow innovations to spread with astonishing speed across the entire world. The controlled flame of the campfire has given your ancestors warmth, protection, and a revolutionary new diet. But its greatest gift is something less tangible. It is the gift of the evening. For millions of years, the setting of the sun meant the end of the productive day, a time to huddle in fear and darkness. Now the fire pushes back the night, creating a circle of light and safety, a stage for a new kind of human interaction. And into this new space, a profoundly powerful tool emerges, born from the combination of a larger, well-fed brain and a small, crucial evolution in the throat. The larynx, your voice box, has dropped to a lower position in the neck. It's a quirky, even dangerous evolutionary trade-off. It makes you far more likely to choke on your food than any other primate. But it creates a larger resonating chamber, the pharynx, allowing for an incredible new range of articulate sounds. You are sitting within that circle of firelight, the sparks dancing up into the immense star-filled sky. An old woman, the keeper of the group's memory, begins to speak. Her voice is not just a series of grunts and calls about the location of food or the presence of a predator. She is weaving a tapestry of sound. She is telling a story. Her words evoke images of the past, of the great hunt that happened last season, of the heroes who took down the giant beast. She speaks of the future, of the journey the clan will take when the rains return. She is using language to travel through time. This is the moment that everything changes. For the first time, knowledge is not limited to what can be directly demonstrated or experienced. It can be stored and transmitted in the abstract symbols of a story. A child who has never seen a lion can now learn about its dangers through the tale of a hunter who was not so lucky. The group's identity, which was once just a matter of scent and proximity, is now forged in the crucible of a shared history, a common mythology. These tales give meaning to their lives, explaining who they are and where they came from. You realize you are witnessing the birth of culture in its truest sense. Perhaps, the documentary suggests, this is what finally makes us human. The first man is not the one who walked upright, or the one who made the first tool. The first man is the one who could tell his own story. Armed with this powerful cognitive toolkit of fire, language, and cooperation, Homo erectus will continue to populate the Earth, adapting to every climate they encounter. For the next 1.5 million years, they are the undisputed masters of the planet. But as different populations spread out, they become isolated from one another by vast distances of mountain, desert, and ocean. And in that isolation, the engine of evolution continues to run. Different groups begin to diverge genetically, their bodies and minds shaped by the unique pressures of their new homes. You can see this great diversification as if looking at a map of the ancient world. In the furthest reaches of China, Homo erectus will become the formidable Beijing man. In the tropical islands of Indonesia, he becomes Solo Man. And on the isolated island of Flores, cut off from the mainland, a population of erectus undergoes a strange process called insular dwarfism, shrinking over thousands of generations to become a tiny species of human, no more than 1 meter tall, nicknamed the Hobbit by the scientists who discovered them. In the cold, harsh steppes of Central Asia, he is Denisova man, a ghost species known to us only from a few fossil fragments and the DNA they left behind in modern humans. In the frigid landscapes of Ice Age Europe, he becomes a massive, heavy man of incredible strength, his body a fortress against the cold. He is the Neanderthal. And back in the African motherland, the cradle of it all, the erectus line continues on its own path, evolving into a taller, more slender, and intellectually restless creature. He is Homo Sapiens. For a brief, magical, and perhaps violent period in your planet's history, it is a world of many peoples. At least 6, and maybe more, different species of humans populate the ancient world at the same time. Each has its own skills, its own culture, and its own way of being human. But this multifaceted humanity, this world of different humans, will not last. A new man is coming, and he is about to turn the world upside down. Back in Africa, a new kind of human has entered the world. He is one of us. His body is more slender than his erectus ancestors. His forehead is high and smooth, and his brain, housed in a more globular skull, has become a marvel of complexity. But the most significant change is not one you can see in a fossil. It is a revolution that has taken place in the silent, hidden world behind his eyes. He is Homo sapiens, and his defining feature is a new and world-altering capacity for abstract thought and imagination. Sometime around 70,000 years ago, a profound change occurred in the way the sapiens' brain was wired. Anthropologists and historians refer to it as the cognitive revolution. It wasn't just that we became smarter, it was that we began to think in a fundamentally new way. We developed the ability to think about, and more importantly, to speak about things that do not physically exist. Did this cognitive leap happen suddenly, due to a single lucky genetic mutation in a gene like FOXP2, which governs fine motor control of the larynx? Or was it a gradual cultural accumulation over thousands of years? It's a question that keeps geneticists and archaeologists up at night. But whatever its origin, the result was the same. Sapiens could now create and share fictions. Spirits, myths, tribal ancestors, gods. These shared realities allowed us, for the first time, to cooperate in huge numbers, far beyond the small bands of 100 or so that had been the limit for all previous humans. This was our secret weapon, the power that would allow us to inherit the Earth. You will see this new power born in a moment of terrible tragedy. We follow a young sapiens named Neka. He is a hunter, a protector of his mother and his little sister Naoki. His clan has been walking since daybreak, when the sky suddenly turns dark and begins to spit fire. A terrible electrical storm descends upon them. There is no refuge. The clan huddles together, waiting for nature's fury to pass. But Naoki, terrified by the thunder, breaks from the group and runs. Her mother follows, desperate to protect her. And that is when Neka's life is shattered. A blinding flash of light, a deafening crack, and from the lightning strike, a great horned beast seems to appear as if from nowhere. When the animal leaves, the bodies of his sister and mother are left motionless on the ground. The clan leader knows they are dead. The breath has left them. But Neka's mind, reeling from shock and grief, refuses to accept it. He is consumed by a single, desperate thought. He had failed to protect them. The next day, as the clan prepares to hunt, a large horned beast, the very same one from the storm, comes to drink at the river. This time, the hunters are successful. They inflict a mortal wound. As Neka stands over the dying animal, watching its last, shuddering breath escape its body, the inexplicable happens. He hears his sister groan. At the very same moment the beast dies, his sister's breath returns. She was not dead, merely stunned. But Neka's imaginative, grieving mind does not see a coincidence. He sees a cause and effect. It's as if he isn't just thinking this thought. He hears it as a truth whispered on the wind. A powerful, magical connection has been forged. The animal's life force has been transferred to his sister, allowing her to live. This single, profound misinterpretation of reality is the seed of all belief. Neka's world has been remade. The chaos of the storm, the horror of loss, has been replaced by a new and powerful certainty. He has discovered a secret law of the universe. Life can be exchanged for life. He has brought his sister back from the edge of the void, and now a new hope burns within him. Maybe the animal's skin still holds a remnant of its breath, a spark of its life force. Maybe it is enough to revive his mother. You watch him as he carefully drapes the heavy horned hide over his mother's still form, his heart pounding with a mixture of hope and fear. He waits. He watches for the slightest flicker of an eyelash, for the gentle rise of her chest. But there is nothing. The skin holds no more magic. As the hours pass, the sky above begins to fill with circling specks of black. The vultures have arrived, the patient cleanup crew of the savannah. They have come to take the body. Neka looks at them with a new kind of horror. If they take his mother's flesh, her body will be gone, and then no breath, no spirit, no amount of magic could ever return to it. She would be lost forever. He has to protect her. In a frenzy of desperation, he begins to gather heavy stones, piling them one on top of the other, building a protective cairn over her body. He is not just hiding her from scavengers. He is keeping her whole, preserving her vessel in the hope that her spirit might one day return. It is perhaps on that day, driven by a magical belief born of grief that your Homo sapiens ancestor invented the first intentional burial. His belief in this other world, the world his sister returned from, now takes another logical step in his mind. The world we visit when we sleep, the land of dreams, that is where his mother lives now. But if she is alive there, she must have needs. She must get hungry. The clan offers him a choice piece of meat, but he refuses it. Instead, he walks to his mother's stony grave and places the food upon it. He is feeding her spirit. This is the first spiritual offering, an act that makes no logical sense in the physical world, but perfect sense in the new world of imagination that is opening up inside the sapien's mind. At first, the others think he has lost his mind, but his conviction is magnetic. A few of them begin to believe in this other world, this place where you can meet the dead, the land of dreams. His story spreads. Before leaving to find a new clan, a few members come to him and ask him to tell them one more time about the images he sees behind his eyes. They want to hear the extraordinary account of his mother living on with the horned beast in the spirit world, to remember it, to take it with them. The idea of an afterlife, an eternity that appeases the anguish of death, is an idea too powerful to be contained. It spreads from person to person, from clan to clan, a comforting and revolutionary piece of fiction. This is an extraordinary flight of imagination that will endow your species with a phenomenal new power: faith. Now you can imagine a life beyond the limits of your own existence. This changes everything. It provides a reason for morality, a basis for shared laws, and a powerful motivation for large-scale cooperation. Why risk your life in a great hunt or a war? Because your spirit will be rewarded in the next life. The time of shamanistic beliefs has arrived, a new reality where a spirit world exists alongside the world of the living, a place of ancestors and animal spirits, a place you can travel to in a trance, a place that gives meaning to the hardships and chaos of the real world. This shared belief is the invisible thread that will allow sapiens to weave together clans, then tribes, and one day, entire nations. Propelled by this phenomenal new power of faith and a restless imagination, your Homo sapiens ancestors are no longer bound to their ancestral homeland. They begin to leave Africa in successive waves, driven by a belief in worlds beyond the horizon, by signs from nature, and by the power of the sun and the moon. Their journey will be a perilous one, an expansion into an unknown world that will demand a high price in suffering and death. But nothing will stop them now. You will follow the journey of one of these pioneering clans. They are led not by a male hunter, but by a female shaman named Nata. She is the eldest of 3 sisters, the keeper of the clan's spiritual life. Her people worship the sun, the great giver of life and warmth. One day a terrifying event occurs. The sun disappears in the middle of the day. A solar eclipse. To them it is not an astronomical alignment. It is a bad omen, a sign that the sun is being devoured by monsters of darkness. Nata enters a trance, her body convulsing as she spiritually battles the devourers of light. When the sun returns, the clan is relieved, but Nata is shaken. She declares that the suns are weak in this land. They must follow them, over the great mountains to the north, to find the land where all the suns travel, a place where night does not exist. And so their faith carries them towards the immense, snow-covered peaks of the Alps during the height of the Ice Age. They have never seen white earth before. It is an alien landscape, a white hell. The snow is beautiful, but it burns their feet. Their skin, adapted for the African sun, has no defense against this new kind of fire. But Sapiens is nothing if not adaptable. Faced with a problem, they innovate. They take the animal skins they use for clothing and wrap them around their feet, inventing the first shoe to protect themselves from the cold. Over thousands of years of pushing into these cold lands, your ancestors' bodies will change. Their skin will lighten, a crucial adaptation to better absorb the weak northern sun's ultraviolet rays, which are essential for synthesizing vitamin D. But these first pioneers do not have the benefit of generations of adaptation. They are tropical animals in a frozen world, and the cold is a relentless, invisible predator. Nata's determination is absolute, but their courage does not nourish their starving bodies. One of her sisters freezes to death in her sleep, her body becoming as hard as wood. Their beliefs dictate their response to death. For this clan, there is no burial in the dark earth. That would be a prison for the spirit. They believe the dead must be offered to the light. Nata performs the ritual, accompanying her sister's spirit as the sun's rays touch her frozen face, helping her find the way to the world of suns. The conquest of these virgin lands commands a high price. Sapiens leaves many of its own along the way, but every territory they explore, every painful lesson they learn, will benefit the future generations that follow in their footsteps. They are the scouts of humanity, paying for your future with their lives. Now they number fewer than the fingers of one hand, their last bit of strength draining from them as they plod through the endless snow, clinging to a shaman's promise of a land without night. As their last reserves of strength drain away into the biting wind, a flicker of hope is rekindled. Through the swirling snow, Nata and her few remaining companions see three shapes on a distant hill. They are large and covered in snow. They must be animals, surely. Food, a gift from the suns to sustain them, to help them complete their sacred voyage. They are saved. With a final, desperate surge of energy, they stumble towards the shapes. But as they get closer, the hope curdles into a profound and chilling mystery. They are not animals. They are rocks. Piles of rocks, arranged in a way that is clearly not natural. And beneath one pile, a bird's wing has been placed, but it has no flesh on it. It is a marker. Other men have been here, in this impossible, frozen hell. But who are they? And where did they come from? Digging away the snow and stones, they find the answer. Bodies. But their skulls are different from theirs, longer, with a heavy brow ridge. Nata is lost. The land of suns is not here. There is nothing to eat. They are condemned to die in this land of ghosts. But in this cold and hostile corner of Europe, another species of human is not just surviving. It is thriving. He is perfectly adapted to this environment. The graves Nata has opened belong to the ancestors of the Neanderthal. Just as she collapses into the snow, she is found. When Nata opens her eyes, she doesn't know if she is still in the world of the living, or if she has finally crossed over into the spirit world. She is in a cave, warmed by a fire, and surrounded by beings who are not exactly men, but something else entirely. They are powerfully built, with broad chests and short, stocky limbs, a body plan perfectly evolved to conserve heat. Their faces are dominated by a large nose, perhaps an adaptation to warm the frigid air before it entered their lungs. These are the Neanderthals, a human species who, without ever having made contact with sapiens, had made numerous discoveries of their own. They had their own beliefs about the invisible world, their own music played on bone flutes, their own mastery of fire, and their own sacred traditions. They lived in these caves, and they buried their dead. The Neanderthal chief, whose ancestors' graves Nata had disturbed, is intrigued by these strange newcomers with their flat foreheads and slender bodies. A fragile, uneasy first contact begins, but the cultural chasm between them is immense and terrifying. Nata watches in horror as the Neanderthals take the body of her companion, who had frozen to death on the mountain, and prepare to bury him in a pit dug into the dark floor of the cave. To her, this is the ultimate sacrilege. Her entire belief system is built on giving the dead to the light, to the sun, so their spirits can fly free. To imprison a body in the cold, dark earth is to trap its soul forever. Her desperate cries and frantic gestures are incomprehensible to the Neanderthals, whose own sacred traditions tell them that the body must be returned to the earth from which it came. For decades, we depicted these encounters as a simple case of replacement, of our superior species driving our brutish cousins to extinction. The documentary even implies that their union could not produce offspring. But in the last few years, a revolution in genetics has completely rewritten this story. By sequencing the Neanderthal genome from ancient bones, we have discovered the undeniable truth. We did not just replace them, we met them and we interbred. If your ancestry lies outside of Africa, you are carrying between 1 and 2% Neanderthal DNA in your own body right now. Echoes of their immune systems, their skin, and their hair live on in you. This was not a meeting of two completely separate species. It was a meeting of two different kinds of people, a long-lost family reunion that has left a permanent and profoundly human echo in your genes. The fragile peace between your sapiens ancestors and the Neanderthals is held together by the warmth of the cave and a shared, meager supply of food. But outside, the Ice Age winter is relentless. The herds they both depend on have vanished, and a gnawing famine takes hold of both clans. Survival is a day-to-day struggle, and the specter of starvation haunts the fire-lit cave. Then, one morning, a miracle appears. A herd of mammoths, massive beasts covered in long, shaggy hair, saunters down from the north. It is a walking mountain of meat, enough food to last for months, an answer to their prayers. But it is a gift, locked inside a fortress of muscle and bone. Separately, neither group has a chance. The Sapiens, with their light spears and agile bodies, are no match for such a powerful beast. The Neanderthals, though immensely strong, would find it nearly impossible to isolate and kill one of these giants on their own. But hunger is a powerful diplomat. Faced with a common enemy, starvation, these two different kinds of humans are forced into an unlikely alliance. They will hunt together. You are there for the Great Hunt, a moment of unprecedented cooperation in human history. Akea, the Sapiens chief, knows how to track and anticipate, but he has never dared attack such a monster. The Neanderthals, however, have lived in this land for hundreds of thousands of years. They know the mammoth's weaknesses. They know the long noses are afraid of fire. The plan is formed. The Neanderthals use flaming torches to frighten the herd, creating a wall of fire and smoke to channel the terrified animals towards a dead-end cliff. The Sapiens hunters use their speed and agility to harass the flanks, creating chaos and confusion. Their desperate fear makes the mammoths even more dangerous, but the trap is sprung. One of them, a young one, is separated from the herd and cornered. Now it is man against beast, but for the first time, man is a unified force. Sapiens and Neanderthal are united around the same prey. They close in on the giant, their spears useless against its thick hide, but they don't give up. The Neanderthal woman, the same one Achaea desires, is not competing against the Sapiens man. She is fighting alongside him. Pushed together by the same raw instinct to survive, they aim for the vulnerable spots where the skin is thinnest, the groin, the underbelly. They have him, and he is at their mercy. The successful hunt provides an enormous surplus of food, a caloric windfall that will have consequences far beyond a full stomach. It grants the clan an incredible new resource: free time. For the first time in their lives, they have weeks, even months, where the crushing, daily burden of finding food is lifted. They have time to think, to experiment, to create things that are not strictly necessary for survival, to make things that are beautiful or meaningful. And in this new space of leisure and contemplation, the next great human invention is born. That night, by the flickering firelight, the shaman is celebrating the successful hunt. The fire projects the shadow of Achaea's ornate, horned headdress onto the rock wall of the cave. The shaman sees it, and in a moment of spiritual insight, he believes he is looking at the animal nature, the spirit of the chief, dancing on the rock. He wants to capture it, to hold on to the memory of this magical moment. He picks up a piece of burnt wood from the fire, and with the charcoal, he follows the contours of the shadow. A spirit is there. He has taken it back from the wild and fixed it to the rock. 40,000 years ago, the first symbolic representation was drawn on a cave wall. This is the birth of art. This new invention will soon have a universal impact, a silent language of images that will allow different peoples to share their myths, their fears, and their dreams. But this shared world would not last. Soon after these encounters, for reasons scientists still fiercely debate, climate change, disease, competition, or simple assimilation, the Neanderthals fade away, their journey through time coming to an end. They leave behind their ghosts, their genes within us, and a planet that, for the first time in millions of years, is home to only one kind of human. The Neanderthals have vanished, leaving your sapiens ancestors as the sole human inhabitants of Europe. But this was not the only great migration. While some of your ancestors battled the ice in the west, other groups turned east, pushing out of Africa and into the vast, unknown continent of Asia. Their journey was made possible by the same ice age that was freezing Europe. With so much of the world's water locked up in colossal glaciers, the sea levels were drastically lower, as much as 120 meters, or nearly 400 feet, lower than they are today. The world map was completely different. The islands of Southeast Asia were not islands at all, but part of a single, massive landmass called Sunda. This was the new frontier. You will now follow the story of one of these eastern clans. Their entire life, their culture, and their spirituality revolve around rivers. They see water as sacred, a life-giving vein that guides them and protects them from danger. They have become masters of a revolutionary new technology: navigation. On simple rafts and dugout canoes, they have been traveling down a great body of water for months, a journey that has carried them across the entire Indonesian peninsula. They are the River Clan, and their voyage is about to push them to the very ends of the known Earth. After months on the water, they arrive at land's end. The river they have followed their whole lives empties into something they have no words for, something their minds can barely comprehend. before them lies the Pacific Ocean. To them, this immense, churning expanse of water is a new river, but a river so wide they cannot see the other side. The crash of the surf on the shore, the sheer, boundless horizon, it makes their bodies tremble with a mixture of awe and fear. They are fascinated. Where does all this water go? The chief is a man of unshakable faith. He is determined to find land on the other side of this great water. He decides to split the clan in two. He, his family, and his shaman will make the journey first and return for the others. You have to appreciate the sheer, breathtaking audacity of this moment. They have no concept of the thousands of kilometers of deep, dangerous ocean that lie in front of them. They have no understanding of currents, of storms at sea, or of a world where land can disappear for weeks on end. They are a river people about to throw themselves into conquering an ocean whose monstrous powers they cannot possibly imagine. Driven by their faith and their ignorance, this small group of men and women launches their fragile rafts into the unknown. Archaeologists and geneticists still debate the exact routes and timing of these maritime migrations. Were they accidental, with fishermen blown off course? Or were they intentional voyages of exploration? This story suggests the latter, a deliberate leap of faith. Early navigation was likely a far cry from what we imagine. They probably weren't using the stars, at least not in a sophisticated way. Instead, they would have relied on more terrestrial clues. A quirky but effective tidbit from the world of ancient seafaring is the use of birds. A navigator might have kept caged frigate birds on their raft. When they thought they were getting close to land, they would release a bird. If it circled and came back, there was nothing but water. If it flew off in a straight line, they would follow it, knowing it was heading for its home island. It was a simple biological compass. But this clan, heading out into the open Pacific, likely had no such tricks. They had only their courage and a profound and profoundly mistaken belief that the other side was just a few days away. While a handful of your ancestors are adrift on the vast, unforgiving Pacific, the rest of the river clan sets up a temporary camp on the coast of Asia, awaiting their chief's promised return. But they are not alone. For a long time, another human has been observing their movements from the dense, suffocating humidity of the jungle. He is a shy, curious man, a ghost of the forest. This is a descendant of the original Homo erectus who left Africa almost 2 million years ago. His ancestors have lived in this jungle for countless generations, evolving into a subspecies perfectly adapted to this environment. He is a living relic, a different kind of human from a much older world. The Sapiens group is protected by a single warrior, a young man named Snake Eyes, the best fisher in the clan. He is the only one who has caught glimpses of the curious man, but no one else believes him. Snake Eyes is a master of his environment, able to read every signal of the jungle, to decipher every animal cry. But this jungle belongs to the other man. One day, Snake Eyes decides to confront the stranger. He is confident that no man has ever outrun him. He follows the tracks into the deep green twilight of the forest, but the hunter becomes the hunted. With a deep knowledge of the terrain that Snake Eyes cannot match, the erectus hunters have laid a trap. Snake Eyes, the master tracker, is captured like a blind buffalo. He has fallen into the clutches of a forest spirit. In such a hostile environment, the survival rules for these formidable erectus hunters are simple. Every living thing is potentially edible, even other humans under certain circumstances. Snake Eyes fears the worst. For the moment, his captors are simply fascinated by him. They admire his plumage, his painted skin, his strange shell jewelry, his sophisticated fishhooks. They invite him to share their meal, but as he sees them drinking blood from a skull, a cold dread fills him. He must remain calm, his mind racing to find a way to survive. Meanwhile, hundreds of kilometers out at sea, the voyagers are lost. The winds and currents have swept them far from land. When they wake one morning, there is no land on either side. There are no birds in the sky. The world has disappeared. The giant river, as they understood it, has covered everything. Weakened by the lack of fresh water and the punishing sun, the shaman dies, his beliefs shattered in the face of nature's wrath. Their desperate journey is slowly carrying them south, towards the cold, empty waters of Antarctica. Back on land, an unexpected peace is being forged. Snake Eyes, through his own cleverness and his captor's curiosity, has survived. They want to know the secrets of the painted men who walk on water. An exchange begins. He shows them how he makes his tools. They show him the secrets of the forest. Bonds form between these two different peoples, a quiet merging of cultures and knowledge despite their genetic differences. All over the Asian continent, it is likely that sapiens and local erectus populations intermingled in just this way, their genes and cultures blending together to form the deep ancestry of modern Asian peoples. Just as the last of the ocean voyagers are about to succumb to dehydration, a miracle appears on the horizon. Land. The other side of the big river. They have navigated for days, maybe weeks, carried by their ignorance, their bravery, and the sheer luck of the currents. They have arrived in a land yet unexplored by man, a secret world filled with creatures from their dreams. 60,000 years ago, your Homo sapiens ancestors discovered an immense isolated landmass, a continent that had been separated from the rest of the world for millions of years. This is Australia, the cradle of unique plant and animal species, a world of giant kangaroos and flightless birds. They will never find their way back to Asia. They will become the founding population of another great human family, a people of extraordinary navigational skill who will one day populate the entire Pacific. The ancestors of the Australian Aboriginals, the world's oldest continuous culture. You must now travel forward in time, back to the frozen plains of Ice Age Europe, around 20,000 years ago. Your Homo sapiens ancestors have dispersed throughout the continent, masters of the tundra and the great hunt. But their success has created a new and insidious danger: isolation. The clans are small, scattered far and wide across a vast and empty landscape. Sometimes a group can go for years, even generations, without encountering another soul. They are forced to reproduce amongst themselves, and inevitably, the curse of inbreeding strikes their children, leaving them sick, weak, or incapable of having children of their own. This is a slow, quiet extinction, a genetic dead end that threatens to wipe out entire bloodlines. You are with one such clan, the bison hunting clan. Years ago they were prosperous, with many hunters and children. Today there are only 9 of them left, with one lone male child, and he is not well. Their sorcerer, a man named Atka, has tried every ritual he knows to cure his people of this curse, but the ancestor spirit who guides him has fallen silent. Atka feels alone, his power useless, his clan fading away before his eyes. The chief has just found a winter shelter, a large cave at the base of a cliff. It has the ominous shape of a skull. As they enter, Atka's son becomes agitated, as if the place is speaking to him, as if he can hear voices whispering from the rock. The child, made an outsider by his illness, is always looking for places to hide, and he is the first to find a narrow passage leading deep into the belly of the cave. Atka follows, sensing a presence in the darkness. He knows caves are the best places for shamanistic rituals, and this one feels promising. And then his hand brushes against the cold stone, and he feels it. Signs made by a man's hand. He lights a torch. The first rock paintings are not the grand bison and horses you might imagine. They are streaks, circles, and spirals, strange geometric shapes. This is a fascinating tidbit that researchers into the origins of art have discovered. The very first stage of a hallucinogenic trance, induced by fasting or psychotropic plants, often produces these exact kinds of visions. He is looking at another shaman's journey, etched into the rock. Other men had been here. Determined to heal his son, Atka prepares a magical potion from a slug, a ritual to send him into the spirit world, where he can find his son's lost spirit and bring it back. As he enters the trance, a commotion erupts from the mouth of the cave. Another clan has arrived. It is their cave, and they do not want to share. A fight breaks out, a desperate, pathetic struggle between two starving, dwindling groups. But as the men fight, the spirit of the bison takes over Atka's body. He is no longer himself. His hand, guided by the vision, grabs a piece of charcoal and begins to trace a new image on the wall. The men from both clans, drawn by the strange spectacle, stop fighting. They watch, mesmerized as the image of a great bison, the animal that gives them life, takes shape in the flickering torchlight. It is an image they all recognize, an emotion they have all experienced. They look at one another, and in that shared moment of awe, they feel the same thing. The art is speaking to all of them. It is a language that needs no words. Archaeologists still debate the exact meaning of these paintings. Were they hunting magic, clan symbols, or maps of the spirit world? But here, in this moment, the purpose is clear. Cave painting has become a universal message, a bridge that allows different groups of Homo sapiens to understand and accept one another. It transforms enemies into allies. It will be the cure for their isolation, drawing small, lonely groups together into sacred places like this, creating larger communities where they can exchange skills, stories, and, most importantly, partners. Art will be the invention that saves them from the silence of their own bloodline. The flickering images of bison on the cave wall, which brought your ancestors together in shared awe, marked the high point of a world that was about to vanish forever. Suddenly, around 12,000 years ago, the planet's climate lurches in the opposite direction. After 100,000 years in the grip of the ice, the Earth begins to warm, and it does so with shocking speed. It is the beginning of a major climatic change, the end of the Pleistocene, and the dawn of a new, more stable era, the Holocene, the geological epoch that you are living in today. You watch as the great glaciers, which had covered 2/3 of the planet's northern land masses, begin to melt. Colossal sheets of ice break off, and a staggering amount of water is released back into the oceans. The sea levels rise by 120 meters, or nearly 400 feet, redrawing the maps of the world. The land bridge connecting Asia and America disappears beneath the waves. The British Isles are cut off from Europe. The continent of Sunda is drowned, leaving behind the thousands of islands that now make up Indonesia. The grandiose, brutal, and simple era of the Ice Age hunter is coming to a close, but a new one is beginning. Almost everywhere on the planet, the weather becomes milder, water more abundant, and the earth more generous. In certain lucky regions, like the Fertile Crescent in the Middle East, the environment becomes so incredibly rich in wild game and edible plants that a revolutionary idea begins to take hold. Why keep moving? For the first time, your Homo Sapiens ancestors find regions so productive that they can stop their endless wandering. They begin to build villages of stone, houses built not just for a season, but to last for generations. For many, it is the end of a nomadic life that dates back to the very beginning of your family's time on 2 feet. With this single decision to settle down, everything will change. You are now in Mesopotamia, 12,000 years ago. You will see this monumental shift through the eyes of a nomad clan, led by a man named Ar. They are still living the old way, following the herds, their lives dictated by the rhythm of the seasons. One day, they crest a hill and see something that baffles them completely. Stone teepees with swirls of leaves on top. They had never seen anything like it. These are the first houses, the anchor points of a new way of life that will change human history. As Ar's clan cautiously enters the strange, silent village, they are confronted with a series of mysteries. Heavy stone bowls sit outside the houses, filled with water and a strange grain. Why possess something so heavy that it can't be moved? It makes no sense to a nomad, for whom mobility is life. But the greatest shock comes when they encounter the villagers themselves. For Ar and his people, strangers are simply other travelers. Survival dictates that you share what you have, because you might need their help tomorrow. But the sedentary people see them differently. For them, a stranger means danger. These people think they own everything: their houses, their stone containers, and even the water in them. To Ar's clan, this is an insane idea. The riches of the earth belong to everyone. You are witnessing, in this tense, cautious first contact, the birth of one of the most powerful and disruptive ideas in human history, the concept of private property. And with that idea comes a new and unfamiliar emotion, the fear of the stranger who might take what is yours. To understand how your ancestors bridged the gap, not just between nomadic and settled life, but between themselves and the animal kingdom, we must leave Ar's story for a moment and journey to another part of this changing world, to witness the beginning of the first great alliance. It begins, as so many things do, with a mother's love and a terrible loss. A young woman's partner has vanished in the mountains, leaving her alone. While searching for him, she finds something that should be impossible. A small human child, wild and feral, being cared for by a she-wolf, the most ferocious carnivore in her world. The men of her village see only a monster and its future meal. But the woman, her own heart hollowed out by grief, sees something else. She looks into the eyes of the she-wolf and does not see a killer. She sees a mother, just like her. She senses the animal's love for the child, a love as fierce and protective as her own. In this extraordinary moment of interspecies empathy, she knows the wolf will not harm the boy. A strange, silent understanding passes between them. two mothers sharing a bond that transcends the boundary between human and beast. She takes the wild child back to the village, but the she-wolf does not vanish. She follows, staying near the edge of the settlement, a silent, ghostly guardian watching over the son she has lost. And so, an alliance is born, not through force or cunning, but through shared affection. The she-wolf's presence becomes a familiar sight. Her pups are born in the shadow of the human world. Little by little, over generations, a change occurs. The wolves that are the boldest and most aggressive are driven away. But the ones that are more curious, less fearful, and more willing to approach the humans are rewarded with scraps of food. They thrive. It is an unconscious process of selection. The friendliest wolves survive and have friendlier pups. The beginning of a grand adventure, not just with wolves, but with other animals too, has begun. Your ancestors have just started the long, slow process of turning the wolf into the dog. Scientists still debate the exact details of this first partnership. Was it a case of humans actively capturing and taming wolf pups? Or did the wolves, in a way, domesticate themselves by choosing to live alongside us? The latest genetic evidence suggests this process began long before the first villages, somewhere in Eurasia between 15,000 and 40,000 years ago, with Ice Age hunters and a now extinct population of ancient wolves. The story of the wolf child is a folk tale, but like all good tales, it holds a deeper truth about a relationship that would change both our species forever. Now, let us return to Or and his clan, standing in the strange stone village. To them, their dog is not a piece of technology. He is a member of the family, a companion on the long road. But the villagers, with their new way of life, see him with different eyes. The sedentary life, you see, has created a problem that nomads never had to worry about. Pests. Their precious stores of grain, the foundation of their new security, have attracted an army of tiny thieves, mice and other rodents that thrive in the shadows of human settlement. The villagers watch R's dog and see not a friend, but a solution. They see a furry, four-legged exterminator. And so, they make an offer. They bring out their heavy stone bowls and some of their strange, tasteless grain mush. They want to trade. They want to buy the dog. R is stunned. The idea of trading a living member of his clan for a pile of rocks and some food is offensive, incomprehensible. His dog is not a thing. He is a being. But for the villagers, everything is now a thing. Everything has a value. Everything can become property. You are seeing the collision of two worlds, not just of nomads and settlers, but of two completely different ways of understanding your relationship with the world around you. For one, the world is a web of relationships. For the other, it is a collection of resources. The story of humanity's future is about to be written not by a great hunter or a powerful chief, but by a tragic accident and a handful of spilled grain. Let us return to the woman who befriended the she-wolf, the mother who adopted the wild child and gave him the love she had for her lost partner, Neen. A year has passed since Neen vanished into the mountains while gathering wild wheat. The clan has given him up for dead, a ghost swallowed by the vast indifference of nature. One day, the she-wolf, now a trusted companion of the village, leads them to a place they have never been before. There, in a small, secluded meadow, they find him. A skeleton, picked clean by the elements, lies in the middle of a dense, miraculous patch of wild wheat. It is Neen. Around his neck is the familiar shell necklace, The woman's heart breaks anew, but as she grieves, she notices something strange. The grains of wheat from Nene's collection pouch, which must have spilled when he fell, have germinated. They have grown right where they had fallen, creating this lush, isolated field. It is a stunning, world-altering revelation. The village chief looks at the grains in his own hand, then at the thriving plants, and then back at the skeleton of his fallen friend. In a flash of insight, he understands. Each tiny grain can reproduce into a multitude of others. The secret was so simple, yet no one had ever thought of it before. You don't have to journey for days into the dangerous mountains to find the wild grains. You can bring them to you. You can put them in the earth, and they will grow. You can become the creator of your own food source. In the shadow of death, your ancestors have just accidentally stumbled upon the invention that will change the face of the planet. Agriculture. The woman takes Nene's necklace from the skeleton and places it around the neck of her adopted son, the wild child who is now fully human. She is passing on the legacy of this discovery, turning a story of loss into a foundational myth for their people, a story to be told for 1,000 generations. And that story, or ones very much like it, spreads like wildfire across the globe. This was not a single discovery, but a revolution that ignited independently in multiple places, a testament to the ingenuity of your sapiens ancestors everywhere. While your ancestors in the Fertile Crescent were learning to cultivate wheat and barley, people in China were doing the same with rice and millet. In the Americas, they were mastering the secrets of corn, potatoes, and peppers, and in Africa, sorghum. More than just planting, they began, more or less consciously, to make the first genetic selections, choosing the seeds from the strongest, most productive plants to sow for the next season, slowly and painstakingly transforming wild grasses into the bountiful cereals that feed the world today. To cultivate the land, man would open clearings, felling trees and changing the very landscape to suit his needs. This marks a fundamental and irreversible shift in your species' relationship with the earth. For millions of years, you had been a guest of nature, a clever participant in its complex web. Now, you are becoming its manager. You are no longer just living on the earth. You are beginning to remake it in your own image. The discovery of agriculture was not just a revolution in food production. It was a revolution in human society. As your ancestors settled down permanently next to their crops, their villages began to grow. Life became more stable, more predictable. More children were being born, and fewer were dying in the harsh uncertainties of the nomadic life. More people meant more homes, and the very shape of those homes began to change. The old, round huts, which were difficult to extend, were increasingly being replaced by new, rectangular structures. This architectural shift, seen in real Neolithic sites like Çatalhöyük in modern-day Turkey, reflects a profound social change. A rectangle is easy to divide into separate rooms, easy to add on to. It is the perfect shape for a new and powerful idea, the nuclear family, living in its own private space with its own private possessions. You are now in one of these growing villages. The population has swelled, and with more people living in close quarters, new tensions are beginning to simmer. You will see this new world through the eyes of two young men, Uki and Uku. They are eternal rivals, and they are both in love with the same woman, a beautiful young woman named Neki. In the old world of the Ice Age hunter, a rivalry like this might have been settled by a test of strength or a display of hunting prowess. But the rules of the game have changed. Neki's father will choose a husband for his daughter, and his decision will not be based on romance. It will be based on the cold, hard calculus of what is best for his family, a strategic alliance to improve their standing in the village. It is now a competition not of men, but of families, and the currency of this competition is wealth. Uki's family is respected, but they are of modest means. He decides to give his family's only baby boar to Neki's father as an engagement gift, a significant and heartfelt offering. But Uku's family, the Belutas, are one of the most important in the village. They have more land, more animals, and more influence. They get to Neki's father ahead of Uki, and their gift is a display of true power, two extremely rare and valuable animals. Cats. This is a fascinating historical tidbit. Unlike dogs, cats were not really domesticated by humans. They essentially domesticated themselves. As your ancestors' villages began to store large surpluses of grain, they created a paradise for rodents. And where rodents thrived, their predators followed. Wild cats were attracted to the villages by this endless buffet of mice, and the villagers quickly realized how useful these efficient little hunters were. They were not pets. They were a living, self-replicating form of pest control. Having two of them was a sign of considerable wealth and foresight. The choice is made. Having possessions now has a direct impact on what you can obtain from others. The poorer you are, the less power you have. The competition between humans is changing. The old law of the jungle, the survival of the fittest, is slowly being replaced by a new, man-made law, the survival of the richest. Uki loves Neki, and Neki has been given to another. He cannot go against the law of the village or the authority of the elders. But his heart tells him this new law is unjust. He decides to defy it. He will take Neki far away, and they will start a new family in another village, a family based on love, not property. Uki's dream of a life with Neki has been brutally crushed. He has been taken back to the village, not as a defiant lover, but as a broken man, his body crippled by Uku's vengeance. Neki has been forced to marry his rival, sealing the alliance between the two most powerful families. But this act of violence has not brought peace. It has driven a wedge deep into the heart of the community, a feud that now poisons every interaction. And as if reflecting the bitterness in the hearts of your ancestors, the sky itself turns against them. That year, the rains do not come. The sun, once a life-giver, becomes a merciless tyrant, beating down on the fields and baking the soil into a barren, cracked wasteland. The village is starving. The shamans dance and chant, the elders make offerings, but the spirits are silent. The crops wither and die. And in a community searching for a reason for its suffering, a scapegoat is easily found. It is Uki's fault. He defied the spirits by running away with Neki, and now the entire village is being punished for his arrogance. Even his own family looks upon him with a mixture of pity and blame. Unable to work, Uki spends his days by the river, an outcast observing the world he is no longer a part of. His body is weak, but his mind, freed from the drudgery of the fields, is sharp. He watches the slow, patient flow of the river, and he notices a simple, profound truth that everyone else has missed. A thin, vibrant ribbon of green life clings stubbornly to the river's edge, a stark contrast to the dead, brown fields just a stone's throw away. An idea comes to him then, an idea so simple it's almost laughable, yet so powerful it will change the course of history. What if he didn't have to wait for the water to fall from the sky? What if he could bring the water from the river to the fields? He takes a stick and draws a line in the wet mud of the bank, watching as the water obediently trickles into the furrow he has created. In his mind's eye, he sees it all, his muddy hand making a channel in the earth, the water following his command, the thirsty seeds drinking, the tender green shoots growing. He has stumbled upon the secret of life. It wasn't a magical gift from the heavens, it was a physical substance, a resource that had been flowing past their feet all along. They had just been too busy looking at the sky to notice. Archaeological evidence from the cradles of civilization in Mesopotamia and Egypt shows exactly this process: the development of early simple irrigation canals that transformed arid, inhospitable lands into fertile bread baskets. Uki, with nothing but his desperation and his insight, is about to become one of the world's first civil engineers. He convinces his father and brother to help. They think it is the madness of a broken man, but they have nothing left to lose. They begin to dig. The result is a miracle that shames the spirits. While every other field in the village remains a dust bowl, Uki's family plot explodes with an impossible flush of green. Their irrigated crops produce an abundance of grain they have never seen before, far more than they need to survive. Uki is ecstatic. He feels he has robbed the heavens of their powers, that he is stronger than nature itself. This newfound power creates a seismic shift in the village. Uki's family, the descendants of the Gaia line, have gone from being outcasts to being the most powerful and respected family in the village. They control the food surplus, a new form of wealth that gives them leverage over everyone, including Uku and his powerful in-laws. This moment also marks a profound change in the human spirit. Historians still debate whether this new power over nature was seen as a gift or a theft from the gods, but the result was the same. Your ancestors began to see themselves not as children of nature, but as its masters, and you can see this shift in the things they created. The old gods, the animal spirits, and the forces of the wild began to be replaced by new deities, ones carved in their own image. The invention of irrigation, a stroke of genius born from one man's quiet observation, supercharges the agricultural revolution. With a stable and abundant food supply, your ancestors are no longer at the mercy of the rains. Their villages, once small hamlets, begin to mushroom into the first towns, bustling communities with populations of more than 1,000 people. You are now standing in one of these towns 3,500 years before Christ. The air is thick with the dust of progress and the smell of 1,000 lives lived in close proximity. Life has become more complex. People now have trades. You can see stonecutters shaping blocks for new houses, masons laying them in place, blacksmiths experimenting with the first soft metals, and potters turning clay into storage jars. It's a hive of activity. But these are not yet full-time professions. Everyone still works in the fields and raises their own cattle. With so many families living side by side, conflicts are now commonplace. The tanner's goats get into the potter's field and destroy his crops. A dispute breaks out over a property line. To manage this new complexity, a council of experienced men has been formed. They mediate disputes and dispense justice, maintaining the town's delicate social balance. But this new, crowded way of life has created a terrible, unforeseen consequence. It has unleashed an invisible enemy, a monster that will stalk humanity for the rest of its history. The sheer concentration of men, animals, filth, and excrement has turned the town into a perfect breeding ground for germs, bacteria, and viruses. Proximity has a price, and that price is disease. You will see this tragedy unfold in the family of the Gaia lineage through two brothers, Waka and Uhru. Waka, the elder, is the town's blacksmith, a respected family man. His son, Ike, often brings him ore from the mountains. But lately, Ike's mother has developed strange red blotches on her skin. No one has any idea that these marks herald a terrible tragedy. The family's goats are sick, but they don't make the connection. Little does Ike know that as he tends to the animals, he is treading on deadly, invisible organisms. This is a crucial moment in your history. For millions of years, your ancestors lived in small, mobile groups. Any disease that broke out would quickly burn through the clan and then die out. But in these new, large, settled populations, diseases could become endemic, passing from person to person, from animal to person, in an endless, lethal chain. Wild pigs, sheep, and cattle had their own illnesses, and as your ancestors brought them into their homes, they created the perfect conditions for these illnesses to jump the species barrier. In those days, deadly diseases like measles, tuberculosis, influenza, and smallpox were all transmitted to humans from the very animals that gave them life. Ike's mother becomes sicker. The rash spreads, a high fever takes hold, and she is racked with pain. They call for Waka's brother, Uhru. He is the town's healer, a master of plants and potions. But this is a mysterious new type of illness, more dangerous and devastating than anything he has ever seen. Uhru is a man who cares deeply about his reputation, and even more about his reward. His greed is his fatal flaw. He tries his potions, but nothing works. Ike's mother dies in agony. Within days, it is absolute carnage. The potter's whole family suddenly dies. Entire houses fall silent. The council of wise men is powerless. In the face of this invisible terror, Uhru, the healer who could not heal, sees an opportunity for a different kind of power. He cannot stop the plague, but he can control the people's fear. He summons everyone to the center of the town and makes a proclamation. He has identified the sign of the scourge, the red rash. It is not a sickness, he declares, but a curse. The spirits are angry, and the only way to save the town is to cast out every person marked by this evil. In that moment, he invents a new form of power, the power of the chief. And his first act as the town's self-appointed savior is to banish his own brother, Waka, whose wife was the first to die. A new form of government, authoritarian rule, has just been born, not from conquest, but from a public health crisis. Back in the town, a new social order is being forged in the crucible of fear and greed. Chief Uhru, the man who saved his people by banishing the cursed, now turns his attention to the spoils of the plague. The houses of the dead and the outcasts stand silent and empty, but they are full of things: tools, animals, pottery, and stores of grain. Uhru proclaims that these belongings are now community property, a resource to be managed for the good of all. But soon, they become his property. He appropriates the best fields, the finest tools, and the largest herds, accumulating a level of personal wealth that was previously unimaginable. This wealth becomes a new tool of power. He knows he cannot rule by fear alone. He needs allies. He approaches Idru, the shaman, and offers him a share of the riches, ensuring that the will of the spirits will always align with the will of the chief. He recruits the strongest young men, equips them with the best weapons, and pays them with food from his new storerooms. They become his personal guards, an armed force to carry out his decisions. A new form of organization has been born. The state, with its leader, its religion, and its army. For the first time, a ruling class has been created. An elite who do not work in the fields or raise animals, but who live off the labor and contributions of everyone else. Meanwhile, the band of outcasts you have been following wanders through the wilderness, their numbers dwindling with each passing day. It is a hopeless, aimless journey, and its members are dying one after another. But epidemics have their own strange logic. Infection does not always mean certain death. For a lucky few, their immune systems fight back, learn the enemy, and conquer it. The plague leaves their bodies, and they are left not cursed, but stronger, carriers of a silent immunity. Waka and his son, Ike, are among the few who survive. After weeks of walking, they finally encounter another people, a group of women who have come from the high Anatolian plateaus to the north. They too have been stricken with the disease, and many of their men have died. They welcome the newcomers with a generosity born of shared suffering. Here, in this camp of survivors, Ike discovers two revolutions that will change the world. The first is a fiery, shy, and untamable animal he has only ever seen in the distance. Now it stands before him, calm and docile as a newborn lamb. It is the horse, and these women have not tamed it solely for its meat. They have harnessed its spirit, its speed, and its majesty. The second discovery is one that will change his father's life, and later, the lives of all men. It is a metal, but a metal as hard as rock, something his father Waka, the master of soft copper and gold, has never seen. The Anatolian blacksmiths are reluctant to divulge their secret, but the tattooed woman who leads their people has a great tenderness for Waka. She shows him the magic. It is an alloy, a mixture of two metals, copper and the much rarer pewter, or tin, melted together in the same fiery bath. The result is bronze. The creation of bronze was not just a step, but a giant leap in technology. Its invention, however, created a new geopolitical problem. The Bronze Age didn't happen everywhere at once. It depended on having access to both copper, which was relatively common, and tin, which was incredibly scarce. This scarcity launched a global hunt for the precious metal, creating vast new trade networks that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Ancient kingdoms would rise and fall based on their ability to control the tin mines of distant lands, turning tin barons into some of the wealthiest and most powerful figures of the ancient world. Waka now holds the secret to this new power in his hands. It is a knowledge that will allow him to reclaim his future. Armed with the secret of bronze and the power of the horse, Waka and Ike decide to return home. They are no longer the cursed outcasts who were driven from their town. They are the bearers of a new future. As they arrive, they find a community simmering with discontent. Uhuru has become a despot, a chief whose decisions serve only to increase his own wealth and power, a man who will not be contradicted. Their homecoming, which was never expected, sends a shockwave through the town. Waka had been one of the most esteemed men in the community, and more importantly, he was the eldest in the legitimate Gaia lineage, a direct link to their shared past. The confrontation is inevitable. Uhuru, consumed by his own vanity, demands to know what riches his brother has brought him as tribute. But Waka has not brought gold. He has brought knowledge, a power that makes Uhuru's hoarded wealth seem trivial. When the townspeople see the hard, gleaming bronze tools and the majestic tamed horses, they see a path to a better, more prosperous future. The shaman, Idru, realizes that the chief has gone too far, that his power has become abusive and corrupt. He switches his allegiance. The love of ownership, the love of power, and the fear of losing it had consumed Uru. And when a powerful man makes decisions for his own benefit and ignores the needs of his people, he is doomed. His authority, built on a foundation of lies and fear, crumbles to dust. Waka, a man of wisdom and tradition, decides that the future should be guided by the young. He makes his son Ike the new leader. Ike and his Anatolian wife, Kaylee, will guide their people into the new world unfolding before their eyes. This more stable and enlightened form of chieftainship, one based on prosperity for the people rather than the leader, will soon give way to the First Kingdoms. Enlightened monarchs will understand that their power lies in the prosperity of their people, that riches are to be distributed, not hoarded. But this also creates a new, dangerous temptation to achieve greater wealth not by creating it, but by taking it from others. And thus, wars of conquest were invented. In the following 2,000 years, this new model of society allows for an explosion of growth. Great and powerful cities emerge around the globe, in Asia, the Mediterranean, and the Americas. The richer ones expand, taking over nearby villages and towns and federating them into the first city-states. The greatest of these will flourish in the fertile plains of Mesopotamia, in today's Iraq, giving rise to the great Sumerian civilization. It is the year 2500 before Christ, and you are now seeing this world through the eyes of Toba, a young shepherd and a distant descendant of the Gaia lineage. Since his childhood, he has dreamt of seeing the great city, and now he is finally here, spellbound by what he sees. The size of the buildings, ziggurats reaching for the heavens. Who could have built them? The gods? For the first time in the history of mankind, peoples of various origins and different languages are living their maitas and building their futures together in one place. He is lost in a river of humanity, a sea of strangers passing each other without so much as a glance. It is a feast for the eyes, an abundance of things he never knew existed, jewels, perfumes, spices, and wines from faraway places. And everywhere he sees the presence of the state. The king has many representatives, and heading the list are those who collect the taxes that support the city. He sees the king's palace, an immense house bigger than the biggest dune in the desert, the center of this hive of activity. But it is a restricted area, a place open only to a chosen few, a golden village within the city where all decisions are made. This is the new world, a world of unimaginable wonders and a new, profound distance between the people and the power that rules them. Your ancestor, Tobar, is a ghost in this great machine of a city. He is mesmerized by its scale, but he is drawn to its smallest, most intricate gear. A man named Sarki, a royal scribe. Tobar watches him work, and to the young shepherd, it is a form of pure magic. Sarki takes a lump of wet clay, and with a sharpened reed, he makes a series of small, wedge-shaped marks. And somehow this marked clay speaks. It remembers how many sheep a man owns, how much grain is owed to the king's treasury, and how deep a merchant is in debt. He learns that this incredible invention, writing, was not born from a desire for poetry or a need to record the great deeds of kings. Historians and archaeologists have shown us that the earliest forms of writing on Earth, like the cuneiform Sarki is using, were invented for a much more practical purpose: accounting. It was a tool of control, a system of codes designed to manage the growing complexity of a state's wealth. Each symbol was a number, a commodity, a name. You are looking at the world's first spreadsheet, etched in mud. This knowledge, this ability to trap reality in a series of signs, is the city's most closely guarded secret. It is a power reserved for a tiny, privileged elite who have spent years in harsh scribal schools, learning the hundreds of complex symbols. Toba, with the dirt of the countryside still under his fingernails, implores the scribe to teach him. He wants to learn the magic, but it is forbidden. Writing is what separates the rulers from the ruled, and the scribes are the gatekeepers. To share this knowledge with an uneducated shepherd would be to threaten the very foundation of the king's power. But Saki is a man with a conscience, and his conscience is troubled by his friend, a weaver whose hands create the most beautiful fabrics for the city's notables. The weaver's debt to the state has tripled, a result of a new war tax, and he is unable to pay. The chief of guards, a man who carries out the king's decisions with a cruel and unthinking loyalty, arrives to collect. Saki tries to reason with him. How can the man serve the king if the state deprives him of his tools, his home, his very ability to work? The guard, who cannot read a single symbol but has the memory of an elephant for debts, is unmoved. His job is not to think. It is to enforce. As Saki watches his friend being beaten, something inside him breaks. He has been a loyal servant of the state for 20 years, a faithful cog in its great, impersonal machine. But in this moment of brutal injustice, he decides to commit an act of rebellion. He will use the king's own weapon against him. Later, in the quiet of his workshop, with Toba watching in wide-eyed silence, Saki takes a fresh clay tablet, the official record of the weaver's debt. With a steady hand, he alters the figures. A few careful impressions with his stylus, a slight change to the wedge-shaped symbols, and the crushing debt is reduced to a manageable sum. It is a forgery, a lie told to the state in the service of a higher truth. Historians still debate whether the invention of writing was a tool of liberation, allowing for the preservation and spread of knowledge, or a new tool of enslavement, creating more efficient forms of bureaucratic control. In this moment, Toba begins to understand the truth. It is both. This secret of the signs is an incredibly powerful double-edged sword. It can be used to communicate knowledge, to record history, and to build civilizations. But it can also be used to lie, to transmit false information, and to deceive people. In the hands of the chief of guards, it is a club. In the hands of Saki, it has become a shield. Words, Toba realizes, can be more powerful than any sword. He has seen the magic, and now he knows it has a dark side, and a side that can be used for good. His desire to learn is no longer just a fascination. It is a burning need. Saki's act of compassionate rebellion has been discovered. The chief of guards, with his unerring memory for accounts, saw through the trick. The falsified tablet was found, and compared to the original, its lie exposed. For such a crime against the king, there is only one punishment. Saki is thrown into prison, his freedom taken away, to await his execution the following morning. For an uneducated man, this would have been an unbearable torment. But for Saki, whose mind is a universe of its own, the stone walls cannot truly contain him. He has intellectual food, and with it, his mind remains free. And so, in his final hours, he commits his last and greatest act of rebellion. He begins to teach. He shares the secret of the signs not with the elite, but with the forgotten men in the prison around him. He teaches the mute how to speak with his hands on the clay. He teaches his fellow prisoners how to read their own sentences, how to understand the power that has condemned them. He only gets away with it because Lugal, the guard, has a curious mind. The guard listens and learns in secret, never breathing a word to his superiors. Saki's final act is not one of despair, but of radical generosity, planting the seeds of knowledge in the darkest corner of the city. Toba cannot let this happen. Saki had risked his life for a friend, and he had risked it again to teach him. Now, it is time to repay the debt. That night, using the knowledge his master gave him, Toba orchestrates an escape. In their final moments together, he gives Saki the symbol of his own heritage, the amulet of the Gaia lineage, a small piece of shell to protect him on his journey into the unknown. They flee into the desert, but the city has made them soft. They are unable to find water, and soon, Saki, weak and dehydrated, collapses in the dunes, feeling his end is near. But he has no regrets. He preferred to die free than to live a lie. He is found by the desert people, nomads who are used to finding city dwellers lost in the sand. They are descendants of the ancient R line, a family that had never converted to the sedentary life. They see the Gaia symbol he carries, and know he is a friend. They save him. Saki joins their caravan and spends the next 10 years crisscrossing the planet, a traveling teacher, a Johnny Appleseed of the written word, helping these nomadic traders master the figures and symbols that will allow them to thrive in this new, interconnected world. 10 years have gone by. Saki, now an old man, returns to the city he fled. He finds Toba, who has not only survived, but has become a royal scribe and a master in his own right. Saki is overwhelmed with pride for his protege. He wants Toba to join him, to see the world. But Toba chooses to stay. His place is here. He has a new and profound mission. His role is no longer to count the king's treasures. He is writing the history of mankind. He is recording the story of the Gaia dynasty, the tale of their long and arduous journey, so that it can be read and heard in the far reaches of the world for thousands of years to come. The written word, born as a tool for accountants, has finally become the pillar of human creation, the most powerful means of communication in the universe, the keeper of your memory. And so, our long, long journey through the ages comes to a gentle close. From a nervous ape standing upright on a branch in a forgotten forest, to a grieving son inventing a world beyond this one, to a lonely shaman tracing a shadow on a cave wall, to a clever scribe turning mud into memory, each one a link in an unbroken chain that leads directly to you. Their story, with all its triumphs, its tragedies, its lucky accidents, and its courageous leaps of faith, has been passed down, first in tales whispered around a fire, and then in the silent, immortal symbols on a clay tablet. That immense legacy now rests comfortably behind your own eyes. The fierce desire to learn, the impulse to live, the astonishing capacity for imagination that guided them through millions of years of darkness and discovery. That is your birthright. The quiet rustle of leaves in that ancient Spanish forest has become the gentle hum of the world outside your window. The story is now yours to continue. Their discoveries still enrich our lives, and now, as you drift into the quiet landscape of your own dreams, you can feel the deep, steady rhythm of that immense history, a soft and reassuring presence that has traveled through all that time just to be here with you tonight.